No DQ Galaxy. We are live with No DQ&A video. It's been a while since I've done a live stream for No DQ&A video. Shout out to everybody watching this live. I have plenty of questions to answer tonight, and also feel free to super chat any questions. That would be very much appreciated. And if you do super chat, that will get priority. Your question will be answered right away. Let's go ahead and get started with this. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube. Spread the word. Michael Wayne, I got your question. Kyle, I have your question. You just sent it in. We're going to go ahead and get started. Now, Kyle and Jerry Slaughter both asked me the same question pretty much. Interstate Kyle said, "Hey, Aaron, do you have an initial pick for the trios tournament that AEW is about to do? Mine is the Dark Order. Storyline-wise, after losing so many members, it would be a fairy tale ending and a nice tribute to Brody Lee." Actually, that was actually Jerry's question. So, Kyle, I screwed up already. We're live, pal. I messed that up. That was actually Jerry's question. So, my apologies. I've already screwed up, and we're 2 minutes into the live stream. That's what happens when we're live. Botch, to quote Noah Foster, the simple man. So anyways, I will answer Jerry's question first here. Predictions for the AEW Trios Tournament. To me, the obvious choice is the Young Bucks, and depending on the partner, I would say that it's probably going to be the Young Bucks team. I suspect the partner is Kenny Omega. If it's Omega, I think it's very obvious that they will win the tournament. I do not see Kenny Omega returning just to lose the tournament. I think the whole idea for the six-man championship, the trios titles, I think the idea was to have Kenny Omega kickstart this thing and get it off the ground. Now, if Omega is not the third person, then maybe the Dark Order, but my gut feeling is it will be the Bucks and Kenny Omega going up against the House of Black in the finals. That's my prediction. Dark Order. If Hangman Adam Page was part of the team, then yeah, I think it would make more sense for the Dark Order to go all the way. But since he already stated he's not going to be in it unless there's some kind of storyline swerve, if it's just three of the Dark Order guys and not Page, I do not see them making it to the finals. Right now, my pick, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. Johnny Boy says it's kind of predictable. And yeah, it would have been nice if we had some of the other top teams, groups like Undisputed Elite. What about Jericho Appreciation Society? Obviously, there are injuries. Things are the way they are. And sorry, Johnny Boy, heard that you got COVID-19. Hope you feel better soon. Now, we do have some super chats already. Much appreciated. And again, if you send in a super chat, your question goes to the top of the queue here. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Says, should Johnny Gargano return as a face or a heel? I say face, and I'll tell you why. I think WWE has a problem with a lack of babyface tag teams to challenge the Usos. The Usos are red hot, but they have run out of teams. They beat the Street Profits. They've beaten the Mysterios. What other top babyface tag teams do you have? They've beaten the New Day. You bring back Johnny Gargano. He comes to the aid of Ciampa. Miz turns against Ciampa, and you reform DIY. You get them back together, and you have DIY built up for the tag team title match. That's what I would do. DIY, and then at the same time start building up Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn as a babyface tag team. But right now, doesn't look like Owens is going face anytime soon. I would say you bring in Gargano and he helps Ciampa. The two of them as a babyface tag team. They feud with the Usos. Thank you for the question. And now I will get to Walter Cruz, who sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Walter. Says, say yes to no DQ, click like and share, hashtag stick to my shtick for the question. How would you personally book MJF's return, and how do you think AEW actually will? I would have put MJF in the interim title match and saved CM Punk's return for after All Out. But CM Punk is back. It wasn't a serious injury, and they're going with the interim title match now, getting it out of the way, which is fine. I have said this on live streams, and I am firmly behind this take. I think MJF needs to come back right after All Out, maybe Grand Slam. And I think he should face CM Punk for the championship at Full Gear, the undisputed championship. I fully expect CM Punk to win it All Out and become the unified champion. And then MJF beats CM Punk at Full Gear and becomes the new face of the company. MJF's the guy. I truly believe that. After that promo June 1st, that guy is money. And I think you got to go with him. Hamp Connell sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Hamp. Much appreciated. Says, this day in history, 1997, The Rock officially joins the Nation of Domination as Rocky Maivia. Not a question there, but I appreciate the comment, Hamp. I will say this about The Rock's heel turn. I remember at the time that it was definitely the right move. Like pretty much everybody, I could not imagine him getting as big of a star as he got. But at the time, I definitely felt like it was the right move. He needed that heel turn badly, and I was happy to see it. Now, Johnny Boy sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Johnny Boy. I appreciate it. Says, how would you fit Cross in the plans going into Clash at the Castle? I feel like they're going to stick with Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns as a singles match, but I like that idea of recreating WrestleMania 2000. Do 2 triple threat matches, 1 for each title, and have Cross win the first match and have McIntyre win the second match. Get the titles off Roman Reigns. I think it's time to end it. And if you're doing Roman Reigns versus The Rock, it doesn't need to be for the title. So I would like to see that. But if not, then I would definitely put Cross in a high-profile match against one of the upper-tier baby faces and really establish Cross as a big deal. Maybe Big E, or not Big E, he's injured, but Kofi Kingston. Maybe Kofi Kingston would be a good choice for carrying Cross. But yeah, I would definitely put him in some kind of match at Clash at the Castle. At this point, I'm not really sure what his direction is, but we should be finding out soon enough what's happening with him heading into that pay-per-view. Like for the time being, definitely get him doing some squash matches and start building him up. And Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Dwayne. Much appreciated. He says, after CM Punk versus Moxley, who do you see as the next batch of AEW champions? Well, I guess you're talking about all of the champions and not just the world champion. I expect MJF, at least I hope MJF will be the next champion. As far as the trios titles, Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. Tag team champions, I'd like to see FTR get the titles at some point, but Swerve and Our Glory, they are babyface champions, so you would think a heel team would step in and win the titles and face FTR at some point. But at some point soon, I would like to see FTR win those tag team titles again. I mean, you could do face versus face team. I would not be opposed to it. And TNT champion, I mean, Wardlow should have it for a while. I can't even think of anybody that I would have beat him at this point. I would give him a long reign with it. And women's championship, you could argue maybe it's Toni Storm's time. Maybe she should win it. And I would not mind Athena being the one to end Jade Cargill's streak. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I would be totally down with that if Athena becomes the TBS champion. And then maybe Jade Cargill could face Thunder Rosa and beat Thunder Rosa for the women's title and move Jade up the ladder, so to speak, and put her on top. Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, would you do face MJF versus heel CM Punk? Ooh, that's interesting. Like in Chicago, I don't think that would work, but maybe in a different town. I mean, I don't know if they have any plans to run Long Island for Full Gear, but imagine that. Imagine if they booked Full Gear in Long Island, New York, and did MJF versus CM Punk for the title. That would be interesting, and that would definitely work. The fans, they gave MJF a standing ovation, and I think they could turn CM Punk at some point. They could pull it off. They could do a double turn. I think it could work. So I'm very intrigued to see what they do and how people react to MJF when he returns. But I suspect he's going to be pretty over with the fans. Like, he can say all the heel stuff, but people love the guy. And CM Punk, he knows how to be an a-hole. He could make that work. And I think a lot of people have been waiting for the heel CM Punk to reemerge. TJS sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, TJS. I appreciate it. Little reference to Better Call Saul and what an episode that last one was, Waterworks. He says, I typed in Con Man and Albuquerque and you popped up. What? He says, hopefully I sent my question in time. Have some characters left, so just filling space. All right, TJS. I am going to get to your question now since you did send in the super chat. The question is, can I find it now? I had a bunch of questions here. Okay, I got it. Okay, so TJS's question was CM Punk's return to wrestling everything you hoped for? If not, what would you have done differently booking-wise, and what grade do you give it overall so far? Any returns you enjoyed more? I think CM Punk had the biggest return of anybody in recent memory. I mean, arguably ever. Like, CM Punk had one of the most triumphant comebacks in the business. And some would argue it got a little boring for a while. He was feuding with some of the lower tier guys, slowly working his way up. It was a slow burn process. And then unfortunately he won the title and got hurt. That kind of slowed things down a little bit. So it wasn't completely ideal, but I have very much enjoyed it. And I would give it an A-. I think they've done a very good job with CM Punk, and his return has over 1 million views on YouTube. So clearly CM Punk is still a needle mover to some degree. And with him being out of action, I think it definitely hurt the viewership a little bit for AEW. And with him back and Kenny Omega, Adam Cole coming back from injury, I think that'll help out things a little bit as far as momentum goes for AEW. But yeah, I have enjoyed it. And Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, how will Triple H treat Vince guys and gals now that he's in charge? People like Ezekiel, Lacey Evans, Omos, 24/7 champion Dana Brooke, and Veer. Time will tell. I think that Triple H will try to make the most out of everybody that's there, but clearly with new people getting spots on television, there will be people that will lose spots. They put Omos on Raw, so they still have plans for him. Ezekiel got destroyed. Hopefully he's back as Elias. I mean, the Ezekiel thing was fun, but I think it ran its course. Lacey Evans, like they really need to think of a game plan for her. They got to stick to a character direction with her instead of flip-flopping her and putting her on TV, taking her off TV. Like, you really need to think, okay, what are we going to do with her for 6 months? We got to give it time to work. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we gotta come up with a game plan and stick to it. And with Veer, they gotta let him open up a little bit. Like some of the interviews he's done on YouTube and on social media, they've been pretty entertaining. And Dana Brooke, I mean, they got to get rid of the 24/7 title, but I think Triple H will treat these people the best he can, and he's not just going to bury guys because they're Vince guys, so to speak. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat says, why did WCW botch Bret Hart's debut so badly? Well, Vince McMahon allegedly said that WCW would not know what to do with a Bret Hart. And quite frankly, Vince was 100% on the money. Bret Hart was like the easiest direction. You bring him in, you put him right at the top, you set up him versus Hogan for the title, and maybe have Bret Hart beat Hulk Hogan and win the title. But yeah, they did not do that. Bret Hart would show up every now and then, and before you know it, he was Hulk Hogan's lackey. He was Hogan's sidekick. So yeah, they really did screw it up, and it's just mind-boggling because that could have been like the easiest push in the world, and they kind of just sat on Bret Hart, and by the time he really started to come into his own, that was when Vince Russo took over, and then Bret suffered the career-ending injury at Starrcade, which really sucked because that was when Bret was finally, for all the bad things people say about Vince Russo, that was the one period in WCW where it felt like Bret Hart was important and wasn't just a guy that was living off his past. Like Bret actually was a focal point of the show around the time that Vince Russo came in. But yeah, they made a lot of bad decisions, bottom line. And they can blame, Bischoff can blame the network and all the corporate BS. But at the end of the day, their creative direction was shit for Bret Hart. There's no excuse for it. They just completely screwed up. Building Nexus sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. It says, do you see The Rock being at WrestleMania even if the insurance people will not let him wrestle and Roman has to face Cody Rhodes instead? I would think so. I would think that even if The Rock is not doing the match, which I think WWE will do everything in their power to make it happen. But again, it's going to depend on a lot of factors, including the insurance, including The Rock's schedule. But yeah, I think he will be there one way or another in Hollywood. So yeah, I expect him to be there. Maybe he'll be in the Hall of Fame. Although I still think they have to induct Batista. Batista might end up being the headliner next year. One way or another, though, I do see The Rock being there. So thank you for the super chat, Building Nexus. I appreciate that. Mr. Tito, part-time No DQ columnist, is here. How's it going, Tito? Tito sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. Says, should Ric Flair have the freedom to still wrestle at 73 if his family is okay with it? Look, Ric Flair's a grown man. At the end of the day, if he wants to wrestle, then he's going to wrestle. I don't think anybody can legally stop him from doing that. Now, any responsible promoter would not go there and not take the chance. That's on them. If they book him and something happens to him, it's on him too, of course. He's responsible for his own actions, but it's irresponsible for anybody to be booking Ric Flair in a match at this point. They just should not be doing it. And it's a sad state of affairs when a 73-year-old man is going out there and he's passing out twice during his match. Like it was just hard to watch that last match pay-per-view, and it should not happen. But if it does happen, I would not be shocked, because I think that there will always be promoters out there that will throw money at him, and the temptation is always going to be there for him. Like he'll think to himself, yeah, maybe I could do one more match, but it should not happen at all. He 100% should be done. Walter Cruz with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Walter. I appreciate it. Says, who's the worst booker of all time, all companies? Well, some people would say Vince Russo. Some people like Vince Russo, though. Virtue, for instance. And there were some things Russo did that I liked. But if you're talking about people that caused business to go down the toilet, Vince Russo is certainly up there. Eric Bischoff, whatever role he had, I'm not sure if he would consider himself a booker or not, but as far as people that were running the company and running the creative direction, Vince Russo would have to be up there, because of the fact that when he was writing all that stuff for WCW, they were losing tens of millions of dollars. And of course, the excuse will be, well, didn't really matter what he was doing. The company was going down anyways. Michael Wayne thinks Kevin Sullivan. But the thing is, they were not losing buckets of money during that period when Kevin Sullivan, although early 2000, I think Kevin Sullivan was doing the booking when Russo was on his sabbatical. So, and that period was terrible. So it did not get any better. If anything, it got worse when Russo left that first time in January of 2000. So yeah, Kevin Sullivan is a good one. Jim Hurd, Mr. Tito said Jim Hurd, the guy that wanted to call Ric Flair Spartacus or something like that and give him an earring, whatever stupid gimmick he had for Ric Flair, and caused Ric Flair to quit and go to WWE. So yeah, or they fired him actually. So yeah, that was pretty stupid. Let's see here. Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. And this is just a comment from him. He says, Ric Flair had his last match. Now, Honky Tonk Man wants one. Look out, Terry Funk will have one next. I don't think Terry Funk's wrestling again. Like, last I heard, he's not in the best of shape. I really don't think he's wrestling again. There are going to be other old timers that see Ric Flair and they'll be like, well, if he could do it, I can do it. But Ric Flair is also Ric Flair. Like there's not a whole lot of guys that could get that kind of attention that Ric Flair got for one more match. Like very few, actually. Hogan is one of them, and maybe a handful of others that were big enough stars that one last match could translate into a lot of big bucks. I'm not sure. With all due respect to Honky Tonk Man, I don't think that there's going to be too many people clamoring to see his last match. Just saying. Love Honky Tonk Man, but don't think it's going to happen. Psycho Jet Black with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, I know I'm the guy that rags on EC3, but do you think Triple H would bring him back along with Strowman and the Authors of Pain to try and make him credible? That is a possibility. Triple H is bringing back past names And a lot of people felt that EC3 did not really get a fair opportunity on the main roster. We'll have to see, because there's only so many spots. There's only so many people Triple H can bring back. And I think Karrion Kross was done very dirty. And a lot of people like Kross. EC3, some people liked him, but now I'm not sure if he's the most popular guy in the world. The Control Your Narrative hasn't exactly made a big splash in the industry. Braun Strowman, never say never. I think that Bray Wyatt is more likely, and we'll get to Bray Wyatt here in a few minutes. Good old JM, Jeff Meacham. And Jeff, I'm going to get to your question here. You actually sent me a couple of questions, so I'll do this first one. What is the likelihood of Mr. and Mrs. Rift at WrestleMania in Hollywood and finally seeing good old JM in person again? It is the end of JM's 40th birthday shenanigans. I would like to say there's a decent chance, but to be totally honest with Jeff and everybody watching this, I do not have any desire to attend a WrestleMania in person. And it's not just COVID. That is a factor. But even before COVID, I was having a tough time, and not because I wasn't enjoying the shows necessarily, but you guys know this is what I do for a living, and I do the results coverage on NoDQ. I type out the results as the show is going on. Imagine trying to do that at an event. And for some of these stadiums and arenas, the reception is terrible. The 5G and even the Wi-Fi doesn't work very well. And you'd have to bring a laptop computer. It's a lot more complicated. And then trying to do a live stream afterwards. And it's my business. And traffic is very high for WrestleMania. And a lot of people tune in for the live stream. It just isn't really something that I can do without a lot of complications. So I prefer sitting at home. We have high definition television now. 15, 20 years ago, it was a different story, but now I can watch on high definition TV on my couch. I have my computer. I can do my work, and it's just an easy process. But Jeff, maybe I can make a trip out there anyways sometime early in the year. My mom's birthday is February 20th, so I can try to make something happen and be out there close to your birthday and around her birthday. That is a possibility, though. I would really like to do that, so we'll see. And I do want to get to Jeff's other question that he sent in. He said, what do you feel will ultimately be the legacy of Hulk Hogan? He said, for all the good he brought to the industry, it seems there are so many blemishes on his life and career as there have been bright milestones. I think that his legacy will be okay as long as he doesn't get in any more trouble and no more skeletons come out of the closet. I think people forgive, and over time, people will forget about the negatives and the great things he accomplished. I truly think that they're immortal. I think that people will always fondly remember the good moments of Hulk Hogan. And I said this on one of the live streams we did not too long ago. I think you really have to separate Hulk Hogan from Terry Bollea. You can love Hulk Hogan and what that character stood for, and you don't have to necessarily care for Terry Bollea as a person. So to me, that's how you have to look at it. Hulk Hogan was a great character, a great persona, and Terry Bollea did a great job portraying that character. Outside of the ring, his actions were not so admirable. Now, BTH sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, who would you have switch shows in the draft? Good question there. I'm trying to think of people that have not been on the other brand in quite some time. I know Fox loves Roman Reigns. If Roman Reigns is staying a dual champion, then it really doesn't matter. But if he loses the titles, I would not mind seeing Roman Reigns going over to Raw with the Bloodline just to change it up a little bit. Seth Rollins, maybe you could move him back to SmackDown. Maybe move Drew McIntyre back to Raw. At this point, I'm fine with whatever they do as long as they actually treat the brand extension well and keep these guys on separate shows, except for the champions. Like I still argue that it would be nice for the champs to appear on both shows, at least the world champion be on both shows. But beyond that, whatever they do is fine with me as long as they keep the guys and gals on the separate brands and respect the brand split. Now, Building Nexus sent in a $2 super chat, says, if Chris Jericho ever returns to WWE, what song should he use? This is interesting because if Vince McMahon was still in charge, I would say there's no chance in hell of him, Jericho, coming back and using Judas. It's a AEW thing. But with Vince gone, I would not mind that. Chris Jericho coming back to WWE and doing Judas as his entrance. But Jericho's a guy who likes to reinvent himself, and maybe he could use another one of his songs when he comes back. But I'm not sure what exactly Chris Jericho would do if he came back to WWE. Like, he's done everything. I could see him going into the Hall of Fame, and he might just come back with the Break the Walls Down and have maybe one more little nostalgic run, maybe one more WrestleMania match. And in that case, he's probably best off just using his classic theme song, Break the Walls Down. But I would definitely not have a problem with Judas. Walter Cruz sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Walter. I appreciate it. He says, would Triple H make the brand split actually mean something, Aaron, or get rid of it altogether? I would think that Triple H would take it seriously if he's a guy, and I believe he is, that listens to the internet feedback and wants to do what the people want. Then yes, I think he will try to make it mean something. And I think everybody knows the value of the brand split. If they end the brand split, then you are going to have more people lost in the shuffle because they have a ton of people under contract, and the brand split prevents people from being oversaturated. Like, if you have several people appearing on both shows every week, then they are going to be overexposed. With the brand split, they're only on TV once a week. And I think the brand split works really well when they actually stick to it and have it be meaningful. Interstate Kyle sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate it very much. Kyle says, do you think Triple H will bring back Mauro Ranallo? Imagine him and Pat McAfee. Also, Michael Cole sounds great without Vince in his ear all the time. Well, I agree with you 100% about Mauro Ranallo. I think he would be great with Pat McAfee. And I agree with you about Michael Cole. Cole has done some of his best commentary work ever. Like, Pat McAfee has brought out the best in Michael Cole. I totally agree with that. Mauro is a little bit more complicated because we all know he has bipolar disorder. And I think that is the biggest factor in why he's not around in WWE. We all remember the situation with JBL, and clearly things are different now. But Mauro went back to NXT, and he was just doing the NXT stuff, and he still left. So I think that really it ultimately depends on his mental health and what he thinks he can handle. And even with Triple H running the show, is more really wanting to commit to doing weekly shows. That I don't know. That is something that he would have to answer. I just don't know. Dwayne Atkinson sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, Dwayne. Says, do you think NXT will be part of the next draft? I would be fine with that for the draft. Have a couple of NXT picks. Each brand gets 2 or 3 NXT picks. I'm totally cool with that. And by the way, the thing too about Mauro Ranallo, if I was running AEW, I'd be throwing big money his way. And the fact that he has not shown up in AEW up to this point, he did Impact Wrestling. He did like a one-off. My feeling, I cannot speak for him, but my feeling is that he just wants to focus on what he's doing with Showtime or whatever. I don't think he wants to commit to a full-time gig in wrestling. Otherwise, I think we would have seen him in AEW by this point, or he would have stuck around in NXT. Dylan with a $20 super chat. Thank you for that, Dylan. I appreciate it. Dylan says, is it fair for me to not give WWE a chance? And thank you for the generous $20 super chat, Dylan. I very much appreciate it. Says, this would not be the first time WWE has promised change and then ultimately disappoint. Is getting rid of Vince enough? I only have time to get my wrestling fix for one product, AEW. There is nothing wrong with that, Dylan. If you only have a certain amount of time, then you want to watch something that you are passionate about. And with WWE, change is not going to happen drastically. Maybe one day it'll be compelling enough that you'll feel the desire to watch it. But if you really don't have the desire, then there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't blame you for being skeptical, because they still have Kevin Dunn there and Bruce Pritchard's still there. There are little changes here and there, but I totally get it, man. I think that if you only have time to commit to one thing and you like AEW, stick with AEW. Let's see here. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you guys for all the super chats. Very much appreciated. He says, do you think Triple H will push multiple people to the main event instead of relying on one guy, or will he try to recreate a Hogan-type megastar? That's a great question. For the longest time, the formula has been push 1 or 2 people, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, whatever. So maybe he will have a different philosophy. That's a question to ask him, and I'm not sure if he'll give you a straight up answer or if he'll give you the runaround. Time will tell on that, but I think if you look at the Attitude Era, yes, Steve Austin and The Rock were absolutely megastars, but at the same time, they had quite the supporting cast, and a lot of people got pushed as top tier guys. Triple H, Mick Foley, The Undertaker, and so on. The key is you want to have 6 or 7 top tier guys, and where the top 2 can bring some of those lower level guys up to their level. And that's what Steve Austin and The Rock did. When Steve Austin and The Rock were hot, the guys around them all benefited. Now you have Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and nobody else really benefited much. It was just those 2 guys, and everybody else meant pretty much nothing. They were second fiddles and irrelevant. So thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Now, Michael Wayne sent this in. He said, will The Rock buy WWE in a majority stake and change the landscape of WWE's history if he matches Vince McMahon's money? I would say that's very unlikely, Michael, because The Rock is extremely busy as it is. He's got his hand in so many different cookie jars. He's got his movies. He's got his his various television projects, and he is involved in the XFL. The Rock's got a lot going on. I do not see him trying to buy a majority stake in WWE. I think that's unlikely. I think he's perfectly cool with letting Triple H, Stephanie, Nick Khan do their thing. I do not think The Rock will be involved in that capacity. And Steve-O sent in a question. He said, do you think Tony Khan can successfully run both AEW and Ring of Honor? Will Ring of Honor get a weekly TV show again? And he says, I hope for the best, but I could see all Ring of Honor talents and assets getting absorbed into AEW in 2 years and titles getting unified. It's tough. I think for one thing, Tony Khan is going to need some help. It just can't be him running everything. And with Ring of Honor, it's an uphill battle as far as I'm concerned, as far as really getting people to care. Dylan earlier mentioned that he's only got time for one promotion. There are some wrestling fans out there. I love Noah Foster, but he's one of those guys that will watch. He will watch wrestling all day, every day, if he could. And there are people that will watch a lot of wrestling, but a lot of people just will not and cannot commit that much time to watching. So what purpose does ROH serve? What void does it fill? It really doesn't. Like, it's just AEW with lesser tier guys. Like, you got WWE, you got AEW, and as it is, you have Dynamite, Rampage, Dark Elevation, and then you got Ring of Honor. Like, it's just, it really doesn't have a place anymore. You have independent promotions all over the place, so if people want to go see a live show, they can do that. And then if they want to see the bigger stars, they'll watch WWE or AEW and go to one of those shows. Psycho Jet Black brought up ROH being like a developmental brand. That makes sense. I would be fine with that. I made the argument that you should have Dynamite, Rampage, and then a third show. Get rid of Dark and Dark Elevation and just make the third show Ring of Honor on YouTube. At that point, I think that's the best way to utilize the ROH brand name and make it a developmental brand. What they're doing now, trying to make it like a full-blown promotion, I think that's gonna be difficult to make that work. And maybe with the right help, Tony Khan can succeed in that, but it's gonna be hard to really make it a must-see product. Like there just isn't that need for it. So now we'll move on. And Colin, the Cleaver, sent in this question. Colin said, with all of the speculation on things changing with Triple H being in charge, how long until we see T-Bar give you back your middle name and return as Dominik Dijakovic? There's been speculation about this happening, and I really hope that is the case. One sign that Triple H is really trying to right the wrongs of Vince, and we're already seeing it. But another sign would be for Dominik Dijakovic, I would just call him Dijak. Get rid of the T-Bar name and let him be himself. Let him do his own thing. Give him a renewed push. And yes, please give me back the T-Bar name. I would appreciate that. And Sun Goshaku, never can pronounce that correctly. How's it going, Sun? Says, what's your favorite women's WrestleMania match from each decade? He said 1980s through 2020s so far. Dude, 1980s, like, I could barely think of any women's matches from that decade, especially at WrestleMania. I mean, The only one I could think of was Wendy Richter versus Lilana Kai. And like, I would never, ever in a million years be like, oh man, I want to go back and watch that match from WrestleMania. Just ain't going to happen. 1990s, same thing. Not much to go with. I don't know if this counts or not, but I would go with the mixed tag team match. Sable and Mark Merrow versus Luna and Goldust. Like, that was a pretty entertaining match. 2000s, as far as WrestleMania matches go, probably Trish Stratus versus Mickie James from WrestleMania 22. That one was solid. And 2010s is where you have a better selection of matches at WrestleMania. I know a lot of people pick the Becky Lynch and Charlotte and Ronda Rousey triple threat, but I was not a big fan of the finish of that, even though Becky finally got her big moment. I prefer the other triple threat WrestleMania match, Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch versus Charlotte, when they first introduced the new women's championship. So that to me was maybe the best women's WrestleMania match that I can think of off the top of my head, at least. And of the last 2 years, I mean, a lot of people would say Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair, WrestleMania 37. That's a good choice. Or Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair from this year's WrestleMania. Both of them, I think, are strong candidates and would be my two picks. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat. Thank you for that. He says, seriously, how can Triple H make Ricochet credible? It's going to take some rehab. You have to continue to put him out there and let him shine and let him win some matches. I mean, he's never going to be a guy that is going to be at the level of a Brock Lesnar, but you can have him come out there and let him do what brought him to the dance, why people loved him in NXT. That's what you have to do. Let him be the guy that can do what few people on planet Earth can do. And that's how you can start to make him credible again. Mike B with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Mike B. Says, hey, Aaron, do you see Maria Kanellis ever coming back to WWE again? Never say never, but why? With all due respect to her, I mean, again, it could be righting the so-called wrongs of Vince McMahon, but they got a loaded division of women. Don't really think they need her. So I would say it's unlikely, but anything's possible. Thank you for that, Mike B. I appreciate it. Billy L with a $2 super chat says, your top 5 returns in WWE history. You're putting me on the spot here. We're live, and you have me answering this question off the top of my head. Okay. Triple H coming back at Madison Square Garden 2002. Huge. Steve Austin coming back after being gone 10 months at Unforgiven. That was another big one. Shawn Michaels coming back after being retired for like 4 years at SummerSlam. John Cena coming back from his injury at the Royal Rumble as the surprise entrant. And Daniel Bryan, after we thought his career was over, coming back in 2018. That was a big moment. So there you go. Top 5 off the top of my head. And Stomach Bug brought up Edge. Let's not forget Edge, the Royal Rumble return. 6. There you go. Those are my 6. Billy L sent in a $2 super chat. Says, much love to Robbie Vice and his family. Absolutely, Robbie Vice. We love you, man. Much love. Nothing but love to you and your wife. Head over to his Twitter if you want to send him a message. Very unfortunate situation in his life, but we very much love him and wish his family well. All right. Now, let's see what else we have here. Miguel. He says with Sasha Banks, Miguel Ortiz, he's been saying yes to no DQ since 2011. Much appreciated. Says with Sasha Banks and Naomi rumored to be returning, what kind of message do you think this sends to the locker room? That you can leave if you're unhappy with creative and come back with open arms? What's your honest take on this entire situation and the way everybody involved handled it? I think that it's unprofessional to walk out on the job regardless of the situation. I get that if you're unhappy, you shouldn't work there, but at the same time, people are paying money to see you, and it isn't professional to be advertised for a show and then go home because you're not happy. We don't know everything that happened behind the scenes. There's a lot of rumor and innuendo, and we just don't know all of the details, what was going on behind closed doors. Sasha Banks and Naomi have not publicly talked about it. We just don't know. But generally speaking, like what Steve Austin did was unprofessional. Walking out like that, CM Punk walking out, unprofessional. A lot of people think he was justified, but still, you were advertised for a show. Kids came there hoping to see you. And if you're going to walk out, then say, hey, I'm giving notice. I'll do this show and the next show, and then I'm done. That would be the professional way to handle it. So I get their frustrations, and sometimes you have to take a stand, but at the same time, there are ways to do it where it can be more professional. That's my take on it. And again, we don't know all of the behind the scenes details, but my feeling is probably a lot of people in the WWE locker room sympathize with them and are not going to hold a grudge for them walking out. Kevin Crittenden said, if you had the opportunity to interview one wrestler on a podcast well before that became commonplace, who would you want to speak to? And his picks were Randy Savage, Andre the Giant, and Owen Hart. All three of those are great choices. I don't know if you necessarily mean somebody that passed away, but if not, if it can be anybody, like it would have been really cool to interview Steve Austin, like right at the peak of his success, like right in 1998, or just to talk to him about how he's feeling and what's going through his brain during that whole period as he's become the biggest star in the wrestling business. Another interesting person would have been The Rock when he was on the rise, like 97, 98, just to talk to him and see what he's thinking and what his creative process is and what he was feeling at the time. Those would have been my top two picks for sure. All right. Psycho Jet Black sent in a $2 super chat. Says, do you think Triple H can make Braun Breaker a megastar? I think Braun Breaker has a good shot of doing that on his own, but certainly with the creative machine behind him, Triple H has a lot of talented people. I mean, it's not just Vince's show this whole time. There are a lot of people that make the WWE superstars who they are. So I think with the marketing machine, with Triple H, I think Braun Breaker, even when it was Vince, I think Braun Breaker had a pretty solid shot of becoming a big star, and I still think he does. And Kyle, I know you sent in a super chat earlier, and I did not get to your other question. He says, do you expect titles to be more relevant now that Triple H is in charge of creative? Do you expect wins and losses to mean something when it comes to being the number one contender to a match? 100% yes. And I think we're already starting to see that where they're trying to have the matches serve more of a purpose rather than just fill TV time. I think Triple H is very much the old school mentality of trying to make everything on the show important. And that includes wins and losses and building up contenders for titles instead of just randomly putting people in title opportunities or contenders matches or whatever. I don't think they're going to go to the extreme of, doing the rankings list and what AEW does, but I think there will be a more conscious effort to have things make more sense and have people serving a purpose on the show and the matches serving a purpose. Mike B sent in a $5 super chat. Thank you for that, Mike B. Says, just a question for shits and giggles. If Bray Wyatt returns, do you see Rambling Rabbit and the rest of the puppets returning as well? All right, so let's get to that. I'm going to answer this question, Mike B, as part of this Bray Wyatt topic. Chris Kaufman had sent me a question, says, what do you think the odds are of Bray Wyatt returning to WWE now that Vince McMahon is gone? And if he does return, will he be the Fiend again or will he be something different? So I think the odds are pretty good. There's a lot of internet rumor and innuendo about Bray Wyatt right now. With Vince McMahon gone, I think the odds have definitely increased for Bray Wyatt to return. Now, will he come back as the Fiend? Mike B, I don't think we are going to see the same Bray Wyatt / the Fiend as before. Wyndham Rotundo is a very creative guy. And I think if you look at any of the top superstars in history, their key to longevity has been change and evolving the character. I think I do think there's a pretty solid chance he returns. If Bray Wyatt returns, I don't think we're going to see the Firefly Funhouse. I don't think we're going to see the Fiend. I think he's going to be a different incarnation of himself. And Psycho Jet Black even mentioned it here in the chat. And this is what I'm thinking. I feel like if Bray Wyatt comes back, he's going to tone down the supernatural aspect of the character. And, he could still be creepy. He could still wear a mask or do the creepy stuff. But I feel like he'll be more of a realistic incarnation of what he was before. It's hard to book the guy. In Vince McMahon's defense, it's difficult to book that guy that can survive being set on fire and all the supernatural stuff. I think by booking him a little bit more realistically, that will make it easier to utilize him in WWE. But I would still like to see him doing some of the stuff with the masks and the special effects, but just tone it down a little bit. I think Bray Wyatt will be something different. And I do think the odds are good of him coming back, and it's just a matter of the right time. But I do think there's a better chance of him going back to WWE than going to AEW. I think if he was going to be in AEW, it would have happened right now. I think the dude's smart. I think he decided to take some time off from wrestling, let his body heal, see how the business evolves, and it's definitely changing right now. So I think the guy is just waiting for the time to be right. And that's how it goes, not just in business, but in life. Timing is everything. The right time comes, I think we'll see Bray Wyatt again, and he'll do something creative, and people will be very happy to see him again. And he might finally have a strong, consistent run. He's had some good runs, but they've been inconsistent. I think if he does come back, he'll possibly have the best run of his career. We'll see. So on that note, it's been about an hour, and I think I will go ahead and start wrapping this thing up. Answered a lot of questions tonight. I do the Q&As every now and then, and I will try to do one. I always say this, but I will try to do one sooner than this last gap. I think it was like a 3 or 4 month gap between the Q&As, but I'm going to try to do them. I want to do them at least once a month. And I've even thought about possibly bringing back just the regular Q&A video. So let me know what you guys thought about the live stream. Leave a comment. And thank you so much to everybody for all of your super chats. I very much appreciate them. And thank you to everybody for sending in questions via email. Thank you to all that tuned in the chat room and contributed. You're all very much appreciated. And Psycho Jet Black has one more for me, a little encore here. He says, what was the most memorable Scott Steiner promo? I think we all have to go with the math one, right? But if we're not talking about the math one, I mean, other than that one, throw that one aside. The promo he cut on Ric Flair, that was the Kevin Sullivan era when things were off the rails, but it was entertaining. Ric Flair, you banana nose, jealous bastard. You belong where you're at in WCW because WCW sucks. It was terrible for business, burying WCW there. You and your friends got Stone Cold fired, and he went to WWF, and everybody changed the channel. Like, it was just terrible for WCW business, but it was memorable for sure, that entire promo. Sean Garner sent in a $2 super chat, says, does Liv Morgan retain at Clash at the Castle? Against Shayna Baszler? Yes, 100%. I shouldn't say 100%. Nothing is 100%, but I mean, I fully expect her to retain the title. I would love to see Shayna win it, but then I know people would be pissed off about Liv Morgan losing. I expect Liv to win. I would say the odds are likely. I would definitely, if I was betting money, I would put money on Liv Morgan to win, but should be a really good match, and hopefully Shayna can bring the best out of Liv and help give Liv some credibility as champion. So on that note, I will go ahead and sign off for the evening. Take care, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. No DQ Review 200 is next Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be kind of like this, where you guys will just super chat your questions, only we're going to have a panel. So it could end up being 2-3 hours. I don't know at this point. So it's going to be a fun one. Next week, No DQ Review 200. See you all then. And remember to say yes to nodq.com. Take care, everybody.